team up and work with the marketplace as much as we can to not try to be an inconvenience to you, but also provide you an acceptable product at the end that meets the needs. So one of the first issues right offhand was originally on the drawings, as you can see in this illustration, the hashed area is known as what the construction area is going to be, which takes up the entire lot. And so what we've worked out in the interim is trying to work with the market to where on Saturdays we'll try to relinquish back some of the parking lot so that the farmers have access to the other side of the canopy. So kind of what will take place is the parking lot outside consists of two parts or two pieces. You've got an asphalt section, which is the one that's closer to the canopy, that the asphalt sits on soil underneath, and then you've got the concrete structure, which has the void underneath, and that's why I've been a lifelong, I've lived in Lynchburg my whole life, and everybody always referred to the parking deck at the market, and I've always said, where's the parking deck? Because you visualize, an elevated parking deck, and then not until this project 2 months ago did I realize that there was a void or a basement underneath the dilapidated parking deck. So we'll end up, we're working underneath the parking deck as we speak right now to remove some utilities that are in there that will allow us to do the demolition portion that we need. So we're putting some storm structure stuff in underneath, and we're hoping right now that by the end of the month we'll start on the demolition part of the parking deck. So next week we'll be starting to put in some barricades along Main Street, which are some concrete barriers to keep people from, in the eventual progression, from driving into the hole, so to speak. And then we'll start with some chain link fence to come around and encapsulate our area. Looking where the garage doors are on this end of the market, down here by the bathrooms, we'll build some hardwood, plywood partitions so that the alleyway can remain open, walking from the canopy all the way to the bathrooms on the outside, and then protecting the public from the construction zone. The rest of it will be removable or temporary panelized fencing material that will relocate on Friday afternoons to give access to this one row of parking as much as we can. And the reason why we need to keep some of this parking is because to try to stage the materials that we have to make the construction complete. So it's not a very complex job. It's fairly simple, as in being that the old parking structure has to come down. We have to put in foundations and walls to retain the soil away from the existing building, which will take several months. Once we get those installed, we'll backfill the hole, put new asphalt on top, new sidewalks and some landscaping, and then that's about it. Unfortunately, it's the time of year where filling a 20-foot deep hole is not usually the best case scenario right in the middle of spring. So we've anticipated some weather, and we're hoping to be working 6 days a week to try to pull this thing in for early June. And as far as some of the phases that you can imagine, the demo part will be fairly noisy, but once we get through that, it'll just be your basic backup noise, sounds of equipment, some chattering, but the noisiest part of the progression will be the demolition phase, and then once we start the backfill phase, we'll have a lot of heavy trucks coming in on a very frequent basis, bringing nothing but loads of dirt to backfill the hole. So when we get to that operation, we'll be a little bit more cumbersome upon you guys, and we'll have some measures of wetting down the material to try to keep dust and debris down to a minimum.
For demolition phase, you said they can anticipate demolition to be those first couple of weeks of February?
That is correct, yes. So demolition, we're hoping to start, I believe it's the 30th of January is when we're anticipating to start. And that will take us into about 3 weeks to get the whole deck removed down to the ground, and then we'll start hauling it out. So that'll be another couple weeks. of bringing that out. And then once that material comes out, we've got some shoring that needs to be done that will act as permanent support for the wall, and then we'll start with excavation, mass excavation, for the foundation for the retaining wall that'll separate the new parking deck from the existing building.
And Jason, so have you all determined when the fencing is going to go up for this large parking lot to start the project yet? It should be in the next couple weeks. Yeah, so fencing will go up next week. You guys are shut down Monday, so the concrete barriers will come in on Monday. We'll start building the plywood partition that's down by the coolers and around the alleyway there. Those will start next week as well. And then by the end of the week, we'll start running the chain link fencing to try to separate the space between parking lot H and the canopy. And so what we envision is we'll have some panelized fence material that'll be tight along the curb line, but on Fridays we'll try to pull this back to leave one lane of traffic open for the farmers to be able to access the canopy in their normal spots. I believe that the city might have somebody that's going to kind of police the area, that entrance on Saturdays, maybe? Correct. We will have market staff you're talking about the farmer access? Yeah, so
farmer access, this access that we're going to provide on a Saturday afternoon, it's going to be very tight and limited. It's not going to be a real open space, but to keep public from pulling in and creating havoc, I think the market's decided they'll have somebody stand guard, so to speak, in the mornings to limit traffic as to who comes in and out of that space. And this upper side parking lot will still be used for the public as far as drop-off and handicap parking.
And to address that really quickly, there is only going to be enough space really for farmers to come in and get into their spaces and then get out at the end. So we will have market staff there manning it until 7 o'clock to let people in, and then we'll be closing the gate. And then we will be at the end of the day opening it back up for farmers to go back out. It's going to be a as it comes basis right now. We don't know whether or not we actually have to stagger people in, what that looks like, whether or not we're going to have Sally and John and everyone else kind of that starts closer to the building kind of come in first and then stagger them in. We're kind of going to go with just having it open until 7 o'clock for everyone to get in. And I know you guys have worked together for a long time, so just working around each other to back into your spaces. But we will have one of our staff at the front manning that gate until 7 o'clock, closing it, and then we will be opening it back up. The anticipation right now would be 1 o'clock when we'll be opening it back up. I think that would be how we would deal with the farmer entrance. They're going to be closing it off. They're going to be moving that fencing on Friday afternoon. And I know that one of the things that we will talk about a little bit later is whether or not anyone would be interested in kind of trying to come and set up on Friday afternoons to make it any easier for you guys. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But as far as this farmer access area, that will be open until 7 o'clock in the morning. It will just be for farmers to use. We ask everyone else that would be using a loading zone here to please use a small lot for their loading zones. This is just for farmers to get into their spaces on Saturday mornings. The other thing, Jason, I was going to ask you to address, a lot of you have asked questions about, is there the potential to open different parts of the lot at different times of the project? And I know that answer is no, because it's really takes up the entire lot until the very end, and then at the very end the lot gets paved, so there's really no capacity for that. So I was just going to have you address that really quickly.
So I can expand on what Jennifer says, but that's basically it. The purpose of this lot is that the whole surface will be repaved, and we'll do all that at one time. So as we bring the fill up on this side and the stone gets on grade, we'll come in and demo out this asphalt. We're trying to leave this asphalt on the other half in as long as we can to let the marketplace utilize it, as far along in the project as we can. So